Hello, all our viewers. We are happy to welcome you all to IAQS's first industry expert podcast, in which we require our student to study certain sectors with respect to its impact of COVID-19, which is then discussed with industry experts. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Atul Deshmukh, who's joining us from Atlanta, US. Atul is a founding partner at KNAV, a multinational global accounting firm with offices across 6 countries, namely India, US, UK, Netherlands, Singapore, and Canada. Atul founded KNAV along with 3 other partners in 1999, and since then it has grown quite rapidly from one office and 4 member team to now 6 geographies and 300 plus members. Atul himself is an Indian CA, a US CPA, a Canadian CA, an Irish CA, and a business valuer asserted by the AICPA, which is US. Hello, Atul. Hope you and your family is all safe and secure back there. Firstly, thanks a lot
Yes,
for
yes.
removing time and agreeing to join for the podcast and sharing your valuable insights with all our students and viewers. So before Ujwal gets into the questions that are there, would like to understand how you are navigating, how's KNAV navigating through the crisis, the entire lockdown, how is it affecting the business and advisory domains?
Thanks, Akash. Thank you very much. Usual pleasure connecting with you here on the podcast. And hello to everyone who will be listening to this podcast. Akash, it's an interesting question. Now, as you rightly stated, we are a multi-locational, multinational accounting firm. One of the things, to a certain extent, we were always ready for was a situation where we had to work remotely. I was, discussing with some of my team members. As a matter of fact, we have within our audit team almost 80 members who are situated from Mumbai. And from last year itself, we had actually started compulsory work from home for for at least, you can call it, 1/5 of the team on a day-to-day basis. So all the 80 people over a period of 5 days would logically work from home. So in a certain sense, we had already tested uh, the microcosm of our system. In some of the other markets like UK or Netherlands or Singapore, we were, again, these are relatively smaller in terms of the number of people. So we had already moved to a remote working environment. Same with the US too and with Canada. So given that, I would say that from a work perspective, we probably were a little better placed. Uh, there have been some unique challenges, and those pertain primarily to uh, situations where still clients pay you your dues by checks, and so if those checks then come to our physical office, then at least one person needs to go ahead, collect those checks. We still have remote depositing facilities with the banks, so those aspects can still be taken care of. But to get everyone to move on to a digitized payment and receipt system has been one of the areas where we are still working things out. Um, I would say that there has been a bigger impact, and which we can talk on later, with respect to how we actually conduct work, especially situations where we have to go and conduct an inventory count. March 31 is the date for a lot of companies in India, right? Which have their inventory count. That is the fiscal year end. So how do you do that? So we can talk about and discuss about that. But yes, it's been interesting. It's been challenging, and we are glad that we were comparatively far more ready as a firm to take up this challenge.
Great, great. Yeah, so the work from home made you ahead of the curve, and
Yes, you are right.
it broadly balanced out the impact. So,
Correct,
Ujwal,
correct,
over to
correct.
you.
We actually, yeah. Just wanted to add that it was on March 15th, as a matter of fact, that we globally requested all our offices to compulsory work from home for all days. So kind of took a proactive step in this regard.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, Ujjwal.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. It's a pleasure
Hey,
meeting
Ujjwal.
you. So there are a few questions we have in mind. Firstly, what do you think would be the financial impact at each level, economics, companies, and individuals?
So let's start from an individual perspective, and probably I will start from the US to a certain extent because I live here, and while we work with a lot of Indian companies and we have these multi-locational offices, but from a US perspective at the individual level, you know how the economy is. It's a credit and consumer-based economy, and the average rent that a typical individual in the US pays is around $850 a month. And this is across geography. So that's a lot of money that we are talking about. Given the fact that people will either be paying rent or they would have mortgage payments, the fact is that at the individual level, people are definitely suffering. Think of the number of people who are dependent today on the new economy. So you've got Uber riders, right, who have been actually supplementing their income. There are workers who have been working in the restaurant industry, where tips become an extremely important mode of making money. We have got the banking sector. Actually, I got a call from one of my friends from the banking sector that on April 1, he has been laid off. And we are talking about the vice president of a bank. I just spoke to another automotive sector company yesterday, and they said that they are basically laying off 80% of their workforce for a 1-month period. So these are pretty serious implications at the individual level. If we go up to the company level, again, while most of the companies are, especially those who are in the discretionary spend market, they are definitely hurting. We see the opposite impact when it comes to situations where companies are dealing with consumer spending, which is need-based or required. So we have had companies which are in the agricultural sector who are saying that the current demand is so high because farmers and even dealers want to stock up on the products. So, you actually see a diverse situation. When it comes to hotels, we do, we actually work with a lot of hotel companies here in the US. And those are the ones, the occupancy rate has probably gone down to nil or minuscule. Many of them have taken a call to actually shut down the whole hotel. So you would see that there is tremendous impact, which is happening at individual, company, and then on the economic level, you will see that yes, for the first time, the US moved from a net gainer in terms of employment. So new employment was being created every month for almost the last 10 years now. So after a decade, it became a net loser. And you have a situation where the people who are actually out of job now are more than people getting new jobs. So unemployment claims are going to kind of increase. And so from an economic perspective, you will see money moving towards typical assets like dollars, people investing in yens, people investing in euros, the stronger currencies. So there would be impact on countries like India, where while we see the benefit of the lowering of certain commodity prices, like the prices of the oil products. On the other hand, you've got the situation with respect to the Indian rupee depreciating against the US dollar. So there are multiple impacts. There is no question about it that this is one situation which is impacting all of us across the board.
That was quite insightful, sir. People are comparing the recent global market crash and volatility with 2008 financial crisis. Do you feel the current healthcare crisis would lead to credit crisis and eventually similar financial impacts? Can any historical crisis be a precedent for modeling the impact?
So I guess definitely from a liquidity and a credit squeeze perspective, uh, people are going to hold cash. So you will see uh, a situation where accounts payables will be deferred. It is difficult to go out at this point of time to go and get a loan from your banker, and this specifically from an India perspective, I think would be even more accentuated. The US, responded, I would say, pretty well. I don't know whether you have heard about the payroll protection program, but the payroll protection program, which has been launched for small businesses, basically allows the small businesses in the US. And when we talk about small businesses, think of in terms of an accounting firm, a small business is defined as a firm which has got revenues of less than $22 million. In terms of certain other industries, typically the definition would be where the number of employees are less than 500. So the payroll protection program basically provides a loan to these small businesses, which is equal to 2.5 times the average payroll cost of these companies, which they have incurred in the year 2019. The rate of interest is just 1%. And if these companies actually spend this money on retaining their employees and making payroll payments, then those expenses which are incurred till 30th of June, apart from certain other expenses like rent and so on and so forth, but to a reduced amount, those expenses will actually be used as an offset to even forgive this loan. So this is providing an excellent shot in the arm in terms of at least providing liquidity. Now, I would love to see such programs coming out in some of the other markets too. I think providing liquidity to smaller businesses is very, very critical. We saw the migration which happened in India, right, from some of these major cities where you have got the unorganized sector and people actually moving back to their hometowns because of the fact that they were uncertain as to, how are they going to pay for their rent, how are they going to pay for food. Now, what is important here is for the government to come out with a program which helps even the employers to sustain during this period. Now, one of the insights that is very important is, and I think if you wanted to kind of go back to the 2008 crisis, one very important aspect which the US government is basically coming out about is that in 2008, a lot of the reaction to that crisis was tempered by, okay, I want to monitor, I want to check whether the money is actually going for the end use that I'm giving the money for. And, one of the ex-Treasury secretaries who had come on one of the news channels actually explained that one of the problems that they saw was by doing that strict monitoring, they actually hampered the recovery. So the attitude now is, let's actually let companies self-certify. There might be a few bad apples. There might be 2 people out of 100 who might misuse the facility. But let's not go by the example of those 2 people. Let's give these facilities to all the 100, because there are 98 deserving companies or deserving businesses which need this, and that will aid the economy to come back. So a partnership here, a public-private partnership based on trust is very important. And that is a very important takeaway from the 2008 crisis. There were responses, there was a TARP program which came out, after 2008 and so on and so forth in the US. But there were the conditions were very stringent. The whole idea was to know I want to exactly give to specific people. While today, the idea is that let's do more of a carpet bombing kind of an approach, and let's ensure that we can actually revive the economy a lot faster than the way we did it, let's say after 2008.
All right.
That was
So
quite
in the payroll package, if I spend it on payroll, the loan is foregone by the bankers.
Yes, yes, yes. So there is a date, there is a date window which has been put in. I have to spend that money from the date I receive it up to 30th of June. So
All right.
in an 8-week period, I have to spend it, and which seems to be a fair, ask, provided you keep your employees. If you
True.
don't keep your employees, right, then you would not have those kind of expenses. So
True. All right. And the banks would be funded by the government for that matter. So banks would not.
yes, absolutely. So all the SBA lenders, and there are tons of those out here in the US, all of them, frankly, some of the larger banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo, specifically Bank of America, actually had their application form ready on day one itself.
Sounds good. Yeah.
That's quite a good package.
Yeah. In totality, that's $349 billion which have been kept aside at the moment. Yeah.
Huge.
And you know that on an individual level, the US government is also going to send out checks to people who earn less than $100,000 in the 2019 year. Okay, so there are checks which are coming as as a relief of $1,200 to each individual who earned less than $100,000 in the previous year. So those checks are expected within the next week.
Yeah. Something similar the Indian government has done for the marginalized, I think, but the amount
Yes.
has been. But I think there has been no incentive till now for businesses. For individuals, there have been
And
some
that's what,
releases.
correct. That's what we want to see. That's
We
what
would
we would
love
want to see.
Yeah. Oh. So, do you see the financial impact as a short-term temporary or more prolonged one with some permanent effects?
I guess this is going to have an impact which is going to last a bit. Remember, we were, we were on a situation where many of the developed economies were going to go into recession because we have had a very, very long and strong bull market. So, from that perspective, this current situation actually pushes us into a new phase. And I'm very sure the way you must have seen, the fact that people are closing their borders, there will be rethinking with respect to the supply chain. The whole movement towards globalization which has taken place over the last almost 30 years, while politically it was being questioned, both in Europe and also in the US. Now, COVID-19 has given a completely new angle to that argument. And you will find that people will now start talking about make in USA, make in India, a lot more. And there might be a certain anathema when it comes to made in another country and bringing those products into our country. So that would be a long-term change that one can actually foresee. Apart from that, yes, there will be some companies which will go bankrupt. There might be certain businesses which you will never see in the future. So we saw that happening, and we saw the demise of a lot of the retail chains after the 2008 recession. Okay, simply because of the way in which the new economy also kind of brought in changes. But what is happening during this period is going to make people rethink. Definitely, buying grocery from your internet, right, is going to get a lot more simpler and easier. The need to actually conduct operations through automation is going to become a more important goal. People might actually move away from the human factor, especially manufacturing companies. So at an individual level, at a company level, you will see decisions being taken which try to isolate and mitigate such situations occurring again in the future.
So broadly, two big themes: deglobalization and automation would be the impacts as such.
Absolutely, I think Akash, you're right about it. A movement more inward-looking, inward-looking economies. Definitely, that's one aspect that you're seeing. You also see it. I see that even in the fight in the OPEC itself, right? Because otherwise, the OPEC countries, they were a cartel, and today you see the fight which is happening out there. It is nothing but it is Russia first, Saudi Arabia first. I think that is what is happening now.
Like you said, the recession was bound to come because I'm assuming US had the longest bull run from 2009 to 19.
Yes, it has been. Absolutely. There's no question about it. It has been. It has been a fantastic, bull market for a very, very long period of time.